Welcome, everyone, to the 2025 Just Food CSA Forum. Today, we'll be focused on our recently re-released CSA Toolbox. I'm Sherry Rickle. I'm with the Brooklyn Bridge CSA and also a member of the Just Food Advisory Committee. And I know I've emailed with a lot of you folks before, but I want to send some sincere thanks to all of you for joining us. We look forward to your input, your questions, your sharing, and I thank you for coming inside and hanging out on this lovely day, although some of you may be in transit or sitting in a park, who knows? So with that, I would like to introduce Cheryl Durant, who is the Just Food Board President. Take it away, Cheryl.
Thanks, Sherry. Welcome, everyone. It's good to see a number of folks here today. This year, Just Food is celebrating 30 years of our work. And the toolbox is one of those things that we wanted to make sure was up and running and ready. And we're going to do a deep dive into the toolbox today and answer as many questions. We want this to be as interactive as possible so that folks get a deep understanding of what it means to set up, sustain, set up or sustain a CSA. In addition to that, one of the promotions that we're going to have this year is throughout our value chain, we are going to be highlighting all of the CSAs in our value chain map. And so we'll be reaching out to folks to get pictures, to get updates so that we can highlight these in our social media and on our Facebook page, as well as in our newsletter. So look out for that. And this we're going to be promoting throughout the 30th year celebration of our work. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ruth, who is on our CSA advisory and is our lead and most instrumental person in helping us to revamp our toolbox.
Hi there. Actually, if we could have the next slide. So what is the toolbox? I've been with my CSA, this is really scary, but for 23 years. And I joined the core group in 2008 and took over leading our core group in 2014. When I joined the core, and then when I took over as core lead, the Just Food had an amazing set of tip sheets up on their website. You know, everything you could possibly want to know about how a CSA works, how it runs, you know, everything that you can anticipate in the way of trouble, how to set things up, how to close things down, how to recruit, and so forth. So it was wonderful. And then, but it was also key to the way CSA worked in the early 2000s, before we all got online for just about everything. So it had great directions about signing up your volunteer hours with a clipboard and a sheet. It had how to take payment by check and how to write press releases. And over time, it simply became less helpful as we all moved pretty much everything online. So at some point, I think maybe a year or two before the pandemic, Just Food took them off the website. And one of the things I started to do when I joined the CSA advisory with Just Food is try to figure out what we needed to do to reimagine how CSAs work in the second and third decade of the 21st century. So we finally, after an enormous amount of reimagining and group conversations, have been able to put it back up on the website. It is, I hope, everything you need to know to run CSA in the city and to run a mixed income CSA in the city. And because CSAs in New York and in any urban area have one fundamental difference with CSAs outside the city, and that is the farmer can't be here. He or she can't run distribution. So because of that, Just Food evolved the core group model, which we've used for these past 30 years. And there are a number of CSA guides out there that are basically farmer-centric. This is what you have to do if you are a farmer. But I think ours is the only one that really relies on the core group model, and we really think is the way to go forward with CSA in the city. And especially too, because city neighborhoods are very mixed demographically. It has everything you need to know to run a mixed income CSA in the city. We hope that our toolbox will be helpful not only for core groups, but for farmers. And it reflects 30 years of experience and a lot of on the ground work in our own CSAs. And now to continue, I'm going to introduce John Zirin, who is with Just Food these last few years as our program officer and simply indispensable person. So
thank you very much. So on this slide, we're going to talk a little bit about how we think about CSA in the context of the toolbox. As Ruth was kind of saying, New York's unique in the sense that most of the CSAs we work with are, run by core groups as opposed to farmers, just for logistical reasons. So the set of principles that we build off of in our toolbox, the main one is inclusivity. Ruth touched on this as well with demographics, but we're looking, ethnically, financially, age-wise. The best CSAs have a real wide range of people in the community that they draw from. And the other thing, without being farmer-led, having a core group is incredibly important. That's just a group of people to keep track of everything. The steering group, as we say, they're the ones who run the CSA and be in communication with the farmer, run distribution, everything like that. In the city, that's absolutely indispensable to have. And the toolbox runs through how to develop a core group, maintain members, and all that stuff. And then all of our CSAs are volunteer-led through both the core groups and down to volunteer hours from just CSA members, working, helping out at distribution, things like that. And that's important just in terms of creating a strong sense of community, gets people in the neighborhood together. And that's really what keeps people coming back to CSAs, is the sense of community. And then maintaining deep ties. So as Cheryl said, we've been going for 30 years now at Just Food. And we've noticed that successful CSAs will have strong ties with other nonprofits and neighborhood groups, as well as usually a strong relationship with their farmer when possible. So having these groups around to support can be very important. I'm going to pass it back to Ruth to begin introducing how the toolbox works.
Okay. When we start to reimagine what these tip sheets that form our toolbox are, and this is probably 3 years ago, we tried to think of broad categories, that sort of buckets that we put all the different discrete tasks that are involved in running a CSA into. If you're starting a CSA, you need to find a location. If you're running a CSA, you need to keep volunteers happy. If you're doing outreach, you need to know how to reach out to your city council person or whatever. But it's not a perfect model, and that's because I don't think it can be a perfect model. There's overlap. There's, for 3 years now, I've been questioning, does this belong in this category or this category? And sometimes the answer is yes, kind of a little bit of both. What the format of these CSAs, the format of the toolbox itself, though, is we have a landing page. If you click on our toolbox, you'll see we have a landing page where it says starting a CSA, running, and outreach. And if you click on any of those three, it'll take you to the landing page for each of the categories, and then you'll see a table of contents. If you click on any topic in the table of contents, it'll take you to that particular tip sheet. And if you back up, you'll get back to the title page. One thing that's important about this, I hope, is that, you know, over time, ways of doing things change. And so I think the thing that took our previous iteration of the toolbox out of circulation is that we had simply evolved, and the ways that we did CSA in the beginning were different now. You know, and that's the way the world works. And so we hope that over time, for instance, if your CSA suddenly needs a new location, you'll be able to go back to the toolbox and refresh yourself on how to get a new location. Or if you have a new volunteer coordinator, you'll be able to send them to the page on how to work with volunteers. But also, if ways of doing things change, and I'm thinking especially of all of the electronic tools that we have gathered around us these last couple of decades, we expect to be able to periodically update the toolbox as we all find we're transitioning to something new. And so this is very definitely supposed to be a living document. It's something that, you know, where the old toolbox, although I don't think we called it that, just was never updated, and that turned out to be a problem finally. I hope we can update this one so that you won't suddenly realize that you're reading about something that we've all simply moved beyond. So that's the hope anyway. It's been up for, I guess, 2 months now, and we'll see how things go over time. If you switch to the next slide, yeah, these are the 3 title pages, which each have a blurb about what is in them. And so that's what you'll see if you click on the toolbox on our website. And then this is a sample page for one of the tip sheets. I think it's important to say the original set of tip sheets, the one that we started to work with, that I think was first posted in the early 2000s, was largely narrative writing and definitely on the wordy side. This is one of our wordier tip sheets, but in general, we've tried to cut down a bit on excess verbiage. We've done a lot with headers and bullet points so that you don't quite have to read a novel in order to find out what you're looking for. So, you know, just this is probably the longest form page you'll see as you move, as you dip into these. I think we could have the next slide. So we just want to go quickly through the 3 broad categories and share a little bit what's in them. And I know that many of the people who are logging on today are extremely experienced CSA core members. And so, you know, I think for some of you, you may not need some of this, but, you know, this is where you will find, you know, information about finding location, recruiting your core group, working with your farmer. You know, that first meeting with your farmer is sort of like a series of blind dates. And just if you happen to be starting CSA or working with a new farmer, Just Food is certainly here to help you set up and bring the 2 entities, the core group and the farmer, together. But you'll find information in the toolbox about, you know, how to work with your farmer on logistics, what night of the week you're picking up and what time they're delivering, and you know, even things as simple but important as where will the farmer park the truck and who will be there to meet and help unload, and all that sort of logistical detail. Will you have members picking things out of bins, or will you pre-box? There are many, many decisions that have to be made, and I hope that some of what's in the tip sheets will help you with that. This is the place where you'll find the extremely gnarly and scary information about setting a share price, setting sliding scale prices, finding a bank or credit union, all the things we do to make CSA affordable to as many people as possible, and also how to collect payments. If there are the two most important things about CSA are making sure the farmer is able to get paid and making sure that members can get their share. And everything else those are the two biggies. And we hope that the lion's share of how to make these things work are in the starting a CSA category. Starting a CSA can be overwhelming. It is time consuming. It is, it's the kind of task that if you look at the big picture, you might never get started, but we hope that the toolbox will help you break it down into small steps and give you a timeline for when you want to do this so that everything is ultimately manageable. And once you've got your CSA started, you can move along to running it, which John will tell you about.
Perfect. Next slide. Thank you. So as I'm sure many of you guys have come across, CSAs need to be able to adapt and fine tune to changing circumstances. That could be a number of different things. That could be having to find a new pickup site or having to change a farmer, changing the members of the core group. These are all things that we discuss in running. And it also gives some of the general information about roles within the core group, who's going to be the treasurer, who's going to be signing people in at events and things like that. And it really gives a nice framework for how to have a successfully running CSA. Also includes information suggestions on, like web services and tools you can use for sign up, payment, managing people, printing out lists, things like that, along with guides for social media and potential press releases and things like that, communicating, getting the word out there with other fundraising groups and nonprofits. And yeah, the member on emphasis on member retention is also important. That's really the measure of success of a CSA is people coming back year after year. And the steps here kind of outline how you could, have the best chances of having a strong core group and just general member retention as well. So I'll pass it back off to Ruth, and she'll cover the third section of the toolbox, which is outreach.
So when we looked at, again, revamping the toolbox, there were some interesting categories that felt as if they all involved the part of the word in community-supported agriculture of community that we at Just Food feels is what sets our CSAs apart from many others. And it's something that any successful CSA needs to have top of mind, as John said, to keep members coming back year to year, to keep core group members coming back year to year, and to continue the most important relationship of all, which is your farmer. So in this section, in the outreach section of CSA, we have answers. The first part is answers for questions that you may get as you're moving into your community and spreading the word about CSA. Both real background, if you need it, on what CSAs are, where they came from. We have frequently asked questions here so that, for instance, if you're running a recruitment meeting to bring in new members, you can refer to this so that people will understand how a CSA works and how, all the basics that we all know about. You pay the farmer at the beginning of the season, so they're funded to be able to buy the supplies they need, that they're volunteer led so that members work a limited amount of hours during the season, all that kind of thing. And, we also have a sort of nuts and bolts guide. Sorry, I'm using my hands to show you a guide. How to conduct a recruitment meeting. How do you structure? How do you handle questions from potential members? And then there's another part of this that I think is really important. And that is, one of the things I have seen over years and years with my own CSA is, we, like many CSAs, do an end of season survey where we ask what members thought. We ask, where are the problems? And, this is certainly a good place to turn up things that aren't working well so that you can retool things for next season. But we also ask members how long they've been part of the CSA and how they heard of us. One of the things that became evident a long time ago is that we get, and I'm sure you guys get too, a lot of churn in the first couple of years. The CSA model is not for everyone, and many people join for a year or two and then just move on, and that's fine. But everybody who stays for 3 years or more invariably mentions community as one of the reasons they stick around for it. Yeah, I mean, yes, it's the food, but it's also, this is a great place to be. I feel connected to something. And I also feel connected to a larger world, in the sense of the world of people who are going for locally grown, sustainably grown food as a way of bettering the world we live in. So the outreach section also includes advocacy, because that is something that ideally core members can incorporate into their outreach and recruitment for members. It's something people really respond to. And also members can be helped and guided to communicate what they think is so important about CSA, and also to advocate for a world of sustainable food systems, and one that doesn't run on big and harmful, sometimes, agriculture. So, just coming back to what John said earlier, if we think about the core principles of the Just Food CSA model, we come back to affordability, making sure that everyone, including, ideally, and this isn't always possible, but we hope it is, ideally, everyone can afford to belong to a CSA, including people eligible for SNAP benefits. And we also come back to a food systems model that is something that doesn't harm the planet, that is available to everyone, and that we all feel is not only good for our health, our physical body, but it's also good for the world that we live in. That's my commercial for food justice and environmental justice. So that's what the outreach section is for, and I hope it'll be helpful. And so these 3 slides are really the heart of what the toolbox is. And now we'll tell you what the next step is, or John will tell you what the next step is.
Thank you. All right, next slide, please. So this is where we look to you guys. We want to hear from you. And what are you guys doing that you think might be unique to your CSA that you think could be interesting for us to add, and we can raise some awareness about it. So after this forum, we also have the network organizers group for you to share, and you can communicate with each other there. We'll send the link out for that to anybody that doesn't have it. And your tips may end up in the toolbox. We've gone off conversations we've seen before in the network organizers group that have been great, and they've helped us shape this new iteration of the toolbox. And so everything in there is super valuable, and we really encourage you guys to contribute. So you can find the toolbox on our website. There's currently still a pop-up that'll come up when you enter the website, and that'll be the easiest way to do it. But for future reference, there's the direct link there. And then you can also email your suggestions directly to us at advisory@justfood.org. So with that, I'm going to switch off to Shari, who will be moderating the open discussion.
Thank you both so much for laying all that out. And I didn't see any comments in the chat yet, or any other thoughts or questions. So I'll open it up, and we're a small enough group if folks just want to raise your hand, or if you're not able to, unmute and chat and you want to put something in the chat, feel free and I will read it. I know one thing that was brought up, and I don't know if you all had thoughts or like where would be the best thing to look at in the best area, but there was the question about like if, and they could go two ways. If your recruitment numbers are down, and of course, you could do outreach and try to get them up, but sometimes, there's a lot of competition out there, right? We all know we try to keep our numbers up and get them up if we can. So are there quick things that you can think of or areas of the toolbox to suggest like ways to reduce the amount of admin, to kind of maybe streamline some of the things that the core group does? That was one question I could start to kick off.
Kick off away, Sherry.
Oh, me?
Yeah, if you want to.
No, I was gonna gauge your guys' thoughts. I'm looking. Where in the toolbox would be a good, is that in the running a CSA that would have like some ways maybe to streamline or like look at the processes that folks are using and how can they maybe become more efficient so it's not
there's not in the toolbox a sheet about how to be more efficient. What there is, though, is a fairly extensive section on what core roles can be. And, I've talked to lots of CSA people over time, and nobody structures a core exactly the same way. So what I'd urge you to do, if you realize that you have, 8 core members and you need to pare it back to 5 or 6, is look at the tip sheet that describes the core roles, and then think about your own group and what really matters to you. And also think about what you have available to you in the way of member volunteer hours. And that might help you, as I said earlier, the things that keep the things you absolutely must do are make sure distribution works and people are able to get their food, and make sure the farmer gets paid. And some farmers, they handle all of the payment stuff, so you don't have to worry about that. But some CSAs do handle payments. So that those are the two most important things. If your CSA membership is trending down, you also might want to be sure that you have a core member or more than one core member, or even some dedicated volunteers who are getting the word out, who are on social media and neighborhood media, and just, you know, especially during sign-up season and before sign-up season, if you have a wait list, you're being out there in the neighborhood and bring, you know, sort of sweeping people into your net. But beyond that, you know, it's up to you. It's what your farmer's handling that maybe you feel you don't need to do. But that's the place I'd go if I wanted to think about restructuring my core and maybe pairing up some of the tasks.
Thank you, Ruth. Anyone else have suggestions for that? Like something that you might have found that worked for you? We sort of are going into a space where we often will open it up for best practices. So I would just invite, if anyone has experienced this and wants to share anything, I will stop talking for just a moment. And then I do see there's a question in the chat that I'll get to. Not hearing from anyone, so that's okay. The next question from Naomi. Can Just Food help with reaching out to local officials, not having any luck making phone calls? Would you be able to share a little bit more about that, Naomi? What are you asking them, just for promotion or something else?
Okay. Hi.
Spaces, help in general?
Yeah. Hi, good evening.
Hi.
I think what I'm asking for is, you know, a lot of them have newsletters, mailing lists, but not an awareness of what a CSA is. No clue. So as the parent company, I was hoping that maybe Just Food could create some sort of a I don't know, a presentation or give them some sort of background as to how long, you know, you've been doing this and how important it is, because perhaps they would respond better to an organization as opposed to an individual like myself. I've called, I've written, invited them down to the distribution site to see what goes on. Because there's a lot of people on that I get emails from officials all the time. And I was just hoping that there would be some sort of collaboration. Maybe you could help in reaching out, basically, because we want to build, we want to grow. And I know they have hundreds of constituents, but it's not happening yet. It's a little frustrating. So that's what I was asking for.
That's a really interesting question.
Yeah, I think
And especially the part about asking Just Food to be involved with that. I mean, I would certainly say, you know, feel free to use our frequently asked questions, you know, anything on our toolbox that might help you communicate. I can also say, though, and now I'm speaking as a CSA core member rather than as a Just Food person, we started reaching out extensively to local city council members, to community boards, to organizations in general during and after COVID, because partly just because we needed help, business improvement groups. What we found is that the magic words were mixed income, and for my CSA, accept SNAP. And that was the thing that allowed me to sit down with our city council reps, staff members, and that gave me an in to explain, yeah, what I mean by mixed income is that our high income people pay more, our, just, how this all works, how sliding scale works. And that got me a place once or twice on their newsletter at a time when we really, really wanted to recruit low income members. And I also found that for our community board, again, what they wanted to hear was this is an opportunity for people who receive SNAP. So that may help you, but I know Cheryl wants to say more.
Actually, I was just going to support the idea. It's a way in which to not only amplify the work of Just Food, but amplify the work of the folks in the community, like Naomi, that do CSAs. And it might be something for us to explore. What are those forums that we could tap into to actually, like, be on a roster to just talk about the work that we do. It cannot hurt. But another thing I'm supporting you on is, yeah, a lot of the times when you talk to your elected official, is not only just SNAP too, is like, do you do emergency food? So it's a toss up between supporting SNAP, having health bucks, and the emergency food, because that's where their focus is, to serve the most vulnerable in the community, which is why our toolbox supporting a tiered model for CSAs is so powerful, because it includes all demographics, all income levels. But that I think that's a really great suggestion, Naomi, and something that we'll explore.
Great, thank you.
Just to add on and to piggyback on what everybody else has said, independent of my work with Just Food, I work for another nonprofit. And one of the ways that we are able to talk to the different city and state politicians is partnering with their assistant. Because a lot of times they're so busy, but if you would get one of their staffers, and
I've done that.
you've done that.
Well, you don't get them directly, because like you said, they're very busy people, but you can speak to their communications person or their some sort of an aide that's in the office, with.
So when you've spoken with them, they still weren't responsive?
One was, but I've yet to see the other one come through. So I'm just, I have to follow up with them.
Okay. No, because from my experience of meeting with the assistant or their staffer person and like using some of the buzzwords like Cheryl was saying, that usually grabs their attention, and you at least have a more meaningful conversation. And they will add you to the newsletter because they want to be able to get that information out to their constituents.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
But don't underestimate the weight of, if you say you're a nonprofit, which is I think one of the things that Naomi is advocating for. So we'll see.
One of the things I'll add as well, we've in a couple other groups I work with, we've been doing a lot of outreach to council members. And I don't know your methods, and not to say that this would work for everyone, but one of the things we've done is send the email and then follow up with phone calls to say, to refer back to the email, just so there's something tangible, and maybe, sort of skipping a step too. And again, I don't know, what format you were using, but possibly just sending a submission for the newsletter, a couple sentences with a link or whatever, like, we would love if you could help promote us. And then it just might cut down on going back and forth, or the need to go back and forth. If you haven't already tried that method, I don't know, Naomi, I know everybody's a little different. Some people respond quicker. Some people never get through on a phone call. So you never know. There's also, like assembly members and other folks like that too. Not, I've done a lot more with city council, but there are other folks as well, so possibly.
I know, Shari, in the Bronx where I am, our assembly member is far, far more receptive to the work that we do than the city council member. Always. You always, that's an easy reach and maybe a good place to start. And as you rightly say, getting on the community board meeting to just say, this is what I do.
And keep records of who you speak with, because the more that you can prove that you're deeply embedded in your neighborhood, if you go to a community board meeting and introduce yourself, you can say, yes, I'm actually, I was talking with your city council rep's office and the local business improvement group or the association of whatever neighborhood you live in. And like, they'll be impressed that you know who these other people are in your neighborhood. And so over time, that helps you build up a database of people. You've got your contact in each of these organizations, since, inevitably too, people move on. And if your city council rep is beaten in an election, then you start over with them. But in the meantime, you've got your community board folks that you know who they are, and other organizations. We built some meaningful ties with mutual aid during the COVID pandemic, and that really helped us in some ways. But echoing Cheryl, that is a great idea to see what Just Food can do to support you in these ways. And we will certainly come
So,
back.
so one of the ways that Just Food could support, and also you can do this yourself, is that social media, by tagging that representative, because they usually have some type of social media account. And so by taking pictures of the things that your CSA does, even if it's just like pictures of them taking, coming to get their distribution, if you have an opportunity to go to the farm or work with the farmer to do pictures and then post that on your social media, and then we can take that and tag it, hashtag it to your representative, because a lot of times their media person will see those things as well.
Yep.
Great points. Thank you all. And welcome to the new folks that just joined as well. Any other questions? I know there's the SNAP benefits, which always is one that keeps coming up, and you're not the only one. Because it's not an easy thing, and who knows where things are going to be going too. So yeah, there's that question. I think we can also this sort of transitions into some of your like best practices. What do you have questions with? What things could you use help with? And we can see if there's something in the toolbox that we can point to. Are there other folks on this call that can help? So I'll open it up to a more general Q&A on the toolbox, then also best practices sharing, challenges, concerns.
I'm curious to hear from Alicia a little bit more about her SNAP challenges. I just laid out for us. The SNAP is always a conundrum for all of us.
Can you?
Can I raise my hand on this one?
Oh yeah, yes, please, yeah.
I'll just repeat what I said February of last year, which is we are the kind of CSA. Chelsea CSA has existed for almost 30 years now. And it was first run out of the Hudson Guild for the first 7 years of its life. And I moved it to the Penn South co-op community. Now it's going to be going on 3 years. And one of the things that we have a couple of healthy NYCHA communities near us, and Penn South itself is what they call themselves the world's first NORC, naturally occurring retirement community. People pretty much, when they're housed there, they can be housed for life, and many of our members are members of the Penn South community. When we were at the Hudson Guild, we were particularly concerned with being able to offer SNAP. And we had probably about, I want to say like 16, 18 years ago. And that was because the Hudson Guild had a swipe card system, and they were doing banking for us because we've never done our own banking. All of our all payment goes through directly to the farm for us. And a fee that's tacked onto each membership does get kicked back to the CSA for our admin. But generally speaking, we don't handle the finances, and therefore cannot take a weekly swipe on SNAP. And our farmer has always claimed that we would like to be a membership model, and a membership model is not a paying week to week thing. They want people who are committed for the season so that they can count those heads and make sure they get their payment every single time, or that they're paid every single time someone picks something up. And looked into so many ways of trying to do this, and the farm said that the red tape is too much for the state, and they just kind of gave up on it because they're up in Leeds, New York, in the Hudson Valley, and we're down in Chelsea. So,
what's the name of the farm?
Stone Ledge Farm in Leeds,
Oh, Stone Ledge,
LEEDS.
okay. Yeah.
Yes, and they have about 8 different CSAs in New York City. So they're healthy. They've been around a long time. The 4th generation.
They do SNAP
organic
at
farm.
all?
Sorry?
Do they do SNAP? Do they do SNAP at all?
No, they do not. In fact, the only way we did SNAP about 18 years ago was because we were housed within the Hudson Guild, and they were willing to take the payment because they were our fiduciary partner. We were using their 501c3 in essence to run our not-for-profit. As much as I've tried to convince our core group that we could be our own not-for-profit, they just don't want to do it. So, and yet we have the demand. I know we could,
you have the demand. Yeah, you have the demand. But as you rightly say, as I have learned in my foray into building our own models for the organization that I work for, that SNAP is a difficult thing. And also, SNAP members are not likely, at least the SNAP members that I know in my deeply food insecure community, are not likely to sign up for 16, 23 weeks in advance. They are more likely to come as you to pay as they go. And we are learning from the work that we're doing that we need to make allowances for this. That's why the tiered model is very important. We have people who will sign up for many weeks and they pay at a higher rate, and we have different tiers. And then you have this group of people that will pay as they go. And how we have solved the problem is that we will swipe the SNAP if the farmer gives us access to their SNAP account. So what the farmer that we partner with does is they give us the tablet, and all we do is swipe the SNAP card and it goes directly to their account. It's very easy. So it's like,
yes,
it's just a little tweaking, but once it is set up, it's like clockwork. But if the farmer is expecting SNAP, and this is an untapped market, because as far as I'm concerned, SNAP members who pay as you go are just as valuable as people who commit to 16 weeks. And the reason why SNAP
100%.
the reason why SNAP users are not willing to do that is that how they view their monetary situation is different from people who are much more comfortable in their financial situation view it. I cannot commit 16 weeks of my SNAP payments of my SNAP benefits for a CSA share, but I'm willing to come every week, pick up my share, and pay you for that share. And as I said, how we got over that is the farmer provides the infrastructure, the equipment, and we will do the swiping for the farmer.
Sure. We volunteered that as well. Yeah. I said, look,
it works. But it works, and it's just to convince the farmer that we take that headache off of you, and it goes directly to your account. If you have a tablet and it's all set up, we will just swipe it for you. And I'm telling you that you will see your finances go up exponentially, because they come every week.
Well, and I
maybe
would think
maybe
that
we
they
need
would
a
come every
separate maybe
week.
we need a separate forum for that, to teach for farmers, to teach them that there are many ways to intersect with the CSA program. That doesn't
And
require.
I think this is a problem with the farmers. I mean, look, I understand they have always stressed with us, look, we are a seasonal membership model. We don't have the means to be swiping a card every single week or making ledger entries every single week. At best, they will give us they'll give our membership 4 payments per season for people to make. That's as much as or 3 payments, actually. That's as much as they will divvy down. Because look, when I present this to people, and one of the biggest hurdles I think for everybody here, I'm sure I'm not alone in this, is making the value presentation on what is it they get every single week and why it's worth the money that they're spending. And when they hear 700 something, their eyes glaze over. Nobody thinks they can afford that. So I always quote what they would pay weekly.
Absolutely.
And they get it. They absolutely get it. They say, oh,
absolutely,
for quality and for the farm, and I don't have to go to the farmer's market. This is so worth it. Absolutely. But again, our farm will not take those weekly payments, and therefore that's why we can't get them into the SNAP mindset.
Yeah, I think they're missing out because they're not seeing the long-term big picture.
Alicia,
and I don't know how to convince them otherwise.
Alicia, 2 questions
Yes.
for you. Okay.
Sure.
First one is, when we met with you last year, you were thinking about reaching out to the other CSAs in your farmers network so that you could together make your case that this would be a good thing for the farmer. That's one question. But before you answer it, my other question is, as Cheryl said, it's absolutely right that people are not necessarily able to commit their SNAP payment every week, but the people who are eligible for SNAP are able to pay in some form. They don't always use SNAP, but they'll pay by check, or they'll pay by cash, or their boyfriend will come in and pay by cash, So my question is, would it be possible to set up a situation where you had a fund, and again, this would probably come from your higher income members or from fundraising or donations, that would cover a certain number of SNAP eligible memberships per season, and would give you the cash flow to say, okay, my farmer wants X for however many shares. We can pay by cash at the beginning of the season. Then, as you say, swipe or accept payments weekly, or however your lower income members can pay. And then the farmer, you can swipe or do whatever. And then at the end of the season, since the farmer will essentially have been prepaid for some of this, and you will have been collecting the cash, you could equalize who owes whom.
Because they would have, and there are 2 funding streams that do this: Fresh Connect and GovSNP, that will pay up to 50% of the share to the farmer.
Who is this?
The GovSNP program, you can look it up. Or I don't know if you're a nonprofit or you're connected to one, or the farmer can apply for this particular type of funding. But you can explore the GovSNP fund or Fresh Connect. Fresh Connect, I think, is state. And what that does is whatever they will provide 50%, I think it's 50% of the price of the share. And then the customer will use their SNAP card to pay for the other 50%. I think that's how it works. And maybe we could get somebody from Fresh Connect or GovSNP to talk about this particular program.
Yeah.
But that will guarantee that the farmer will get at least 50% up,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, our farmer has always been about, look, I'm sending just the shares, only the shares that people have paid for. There is no extra. They've gotten really, they have been on this individually boxed shares thing since lockdown, and I've been wrestling with them to go back to the bins for a number of reasons. One is sustainability, because we're throwing out wax boxes that fall apart. It's ridiculous.
Oh yeah,
But
those boxes. Yeah, I agree.
those farmers, exactly. And I might have them very close, but at the same time, doing that, they really are quite. I mean, they're in the Hudson Valley. I know that they have food insecure people in the Hudson Valley, and yet they just find this to be a messy program. And we are not a 501c3. We do not have a state nonprofit designation. We handle any funds through Penn South Social Services, which is a 501c3, and is part of the housing development that from which we distribute every week from June to November. So
those funds would have to come through an entity such as Just Food. But we have never applied. We have never applied for GovSNP or Fresh Connect. But you're just giving me some ideas to explore.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, and they know. Look, it's our community. I'd have to say the housing community in which we distribute is a good 40 to 50% seniors and on some limited income, and we're surrounded by several different NYCHA developments who also, again, would benefit from this.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I would have the audience. It's just not being able to offer the thing. And believe me, we have one member out of our 85 to 90 some, I think we're up to from last year, who pays for a premium membership. So there aren't a lot of well-heeled people who want to spend, $10 or $20 more per season to help fund other people. And I cannot fundraise because I'm not a 501c3 or registered nonprofit for the state of New York. So,
I hear you.
Yeah, it's a very tough thing, and it's something I've wanted to overcome for a number of years, and everyone just sort of throws up their hands. So, which is really damn frustrating, because I have people who come in and say, "Can you give me a discount? Can you give me SNAP? Can we pay with SNAP benefits?" It's very, very tough.
This is another avenue to explore, because there are, I'm just going to put it out there that with the current political climate, I don't know, but in the past, there are funding streams that will offer a discount to SNAP members, cover 50% of the cost of the shares to the farmer up front, and the customer will use their SNAP benefits and pay for the remainder. So it's something to explore.
It would be a good thing to explore in terms of getting that funded. And then, of course, the farmer is going to say to me, how are we going to get that card swiped every week?
Well, if the farmer will set up the account, but the farmer would not have the responsibility of swiping, because once they set up the account with Total Pay or whatever, they will provide us with the tablet and the machine and the square machine, and the CSA will do the swiping, take that work off of them. They won't have to worry. And all happens is that it's connected to their bank account, and the SNAP benefits go directly to them.
I've offered that to them.
Wow.
I have.
They're losing a whole chunk of a market, man. That is so right 100%. For this particular type of, it requires education. We need to have another forum.
Yeah. I mean, and look, I'm connected very comfortably to some of our local electeds, and to Naomi's quest. I mean, it takes a lot of noise making. I found somebody at Brad Hoylman Segal's office, who is who's our state senator, when I needed to move the CSA to another location, and had to get someone who was going to make a commitment with us. And thank goodness I got someone in that office. And Eric Botcher, our council member, happens to live across the street from me, and he knows that if he doesn't answer a phone call from me, that I'll go ring his doorbell. These are people that you have to kind of be in front of. You definitely have to go and shake a hand and make a
Yes.
personal contact and say, this is what I do. Here's how many people I serve. They are your constituents. This percentage is food insecure. We'd like your help in genuinely supporting the CSA, putting us in your newsletter, appearing with us, shaking our hand in a local newspaper or whatever it is, whatever it takes, because we're going to be a mayoral election for 2026. This is an election year in some cases, and I think there are some people's council seats whose clock is running out, and there'll be new people to shake hands with. But I do say you do have to get in front of these people. I definitely think community board meetings are fantastic. Find one person who can tell you what meeting you should go to, whether it's a committee meeting or the CB wide meeting, and do a 5-minute tap dance. I have a presentation, a back pocket PowerPoint presentation that I can do anywhere and from anywhere. And yeah, I mean, you have to sell yourself as a CSA and what your unique qualities are and why people should join, and give them reasons.
Thank you for this, Alicia. It's something to for just to consider. I'm going to turn it back over to you, Shari, but I see that Judy posted 2 important links in the chat. Yeah, and you should, because I am familiar with the Hudson Valley CSA and Market Link as well. You might want to check those out as well. And I don't know, Judy had their hand up. I don't know if they have a question. We've been talking for a while. Sorry,
No,
Judy.
yeah, I thought because you mentioned Hudson Valley, I was like those 2 would be helpful. And then with Market Link, farmers get a grant, which basically pays for the equipment, not the iPad, but you could always install that on, they receive, because you're several locations, it would have to be someone having to download that app on each, individual devices. And then there's a number of like card readers you're allowed, but then you could always manually, which is annoying, enter in people's information. But there is ways. You just have to. It's better, I find, with farmers, just send them to the agency and let the agency talk to them, because for them, they just think you're just like third party explaining something that might not be clear to you, but they hear it better when it's the actual agency talking to them, because have had all these questions already answered. And then also SNAP, it's illegal to take SNAP for more than 14 days. So if you are not going to provide the food at the swipe, within 14 days, it's actually not allowed. So you have to either do it weekly or bi-weekly, the payments. So that's another, that's like kind of like, you could literally say it's the law when he asks for that.
I think what it is though, Judy, is that they want you to commit to those weeks in advance, even if you're not paying for them.
Yeah.
They want you to be able to commit to them. Like they you sign up, whether you're gonna use what's the app that everybody wants us to use, Farm Generation. What's that app?
Total Pay.
Total Pay.
Yeah, and then Total Pay is also there. Another organization is handling Total Pay, so Nova Group no longer has.
Nobody. Yeah.
And
but the thing is that they want you to commit to those 16 weeks, not necessarily. You can't use your SNAP payment to pay upfront for those 16 weeks, right? Because you are absolutely correct. It is against the law.
Yeah, and then another thing with me, I don't apply to I just don't even interact with council people. But another thing you could do is there's health bucks. So the best way to get to a council person is ask them if they have any health bucks, and let them know that you're going to distribute it to people who are going to use it. That's kind of like a way in. And when a council member is completely new, they literally don't even know what health bucks is. So that's another way of getting in. It's like, oh, do you know about this health bucks? And you can buy for your constituents, and there's these community health bucks you can do, or you could go to the health department directly as a community organization, say, I have a farmer's market that's next to me, I can distribute health bucks, and then they'll utilize it in the farmer's market. Or if you have a farm stand, you can use that health bucks at the farm stand and then just give it to the farmer. So that's another way he just sees more money coming in. So like, you don't have to be a nonprofit for the community health bucks.
Yeah, you can be, you are right, you can be a CBO, but also there are some council members that I personally know that will hold hundreds of thousands of health books for distribution to CBOs. So if you are in a constituency that has a city council member that is very savvy like that, to get in on being given health bucks to distribute at your market or your at your market, that is a bonus too. But yeah.
And I just have
Thank you for
one
that.
question. Is anyone doing egg shares, and how are you handling eggs?
That's the second time somebody asked me that question and I don't have an answer. But if
So
anybody,
we are doing,
if anybody on the forum has an answer, go right ahead.
we are doing egg shares and have done it for a long time. We got a very well laid out answer just now from our egg farmer for how he has, and our egg farmer comes in through our vegetable farmer. He's not, to my knowledge, operating as a separate entity, but he laid out where his costs have increased. He has raised the price of the share modestly. He has said that he's somewhat insulated from the bird flu issues, so he doesn't anticipate the kinds of large scale rises that we've all seen in the world. So I thought this was very well stated. And at this point, it feels, the egg share that he's offering feels like a bargain compared to what is out there. But it's not something we have agency over. He sets the price. And we're just grateful that he's able to get us good quality eggs that we don't need a bank loan to take.
So he's guaranteeing the number of eggs each week for the shares?
Yes, he's guaranteeing the number of eggs, and he's also guaranteeing the price for the course of the season. I suppose there is a chance that if he had illness in his flock, he would have to obviously back out of the rest of the season and refund the money. But, if you sign up for his egg share, you will get eggs for the length of time that our CSA operates this summer.
So how much is your farmers doing for egg share per week?
I can't tell you off the top of my head.
Okay.
We just got the pricing and I haven't read it carefully. And I am deep into veggie share pricing right now.
Yeah.
We have the pricing up on our website in a couple of weeks. It's clintonhillcsa.org, and you're welcome to take a look.
Yeah, because our farmer just messaged us and he was like, he can't guarantee. So he's doing like week by week order. Do you think, is it better to just cancel that or just keep it where people just have to literally order week by week?
I can't answer that question. If you trust him enough to keep it going and it's not too difficult to manage weekly payments, because that sounds like a fairly substantial commitment on the part of whoever's taking the payments, then you could do it. If, you could also think about maybe he can guarantee 4 weeks. And so you could get payment every 4 weeks or something like that. But it really depends on what he's able to do and what you have the bandwidth to do.
Okay. And so we've gotten requests for fruit share, but just looking at fruits, it looks like it's always usually the same fruit constantly each week when I was talking to some farmers. So is it worth creating a fruit share when
It-
the fruit's the same every week?
It really depends on how flexible the farmer is willing to be. I mean, we have a very popular fruit share that has been going on for, well over 20 years. And the farmer does vary the kind of fruit he offers over the course of the season. And I know that he does berries as a kind of loss leader because he doesn't grow them. They're very expensive for him to buy in early in the season, but then it equalizes as you move into stone fruit season and then, the fall fruits. But he, as with eggs, he manages all the pricing and we don't have say in what he offers us. So, I think it's the kind of decision that you would just have to make. I see that Julia Lee, who shares a farmer with our CSA, just posted the egg prices. So they're up in the chat if you want to take a look.
I just want to add something too about the fruit share, Judy, because our farm uses Briarmere from Long Island, because our farmer's from Long Island, and we have they're very clear about what's offered year to year because it's in the Northeast. It's a challenge to grow a lot of variety of fruits. So we put it in there. There's like a sample fruit share to let folks know this is what it is. It's about 3 pounds a week. And, in the fall, it's a lot of apples and pears, and because that is what is available. But we also, make sure our members know that, but also it is actually, I would say about half of our shares do order fruit shares. So it's very popular. And for the folks that can use it and go through that, it works well for them. So I'll just throw that in there. I see we're getting closer to time. Are there any other questions that either you're interested in, we haven't covered yet?
So I'm gonna put in the chat. This was a farm that actually was promoting it on Instagram. They were bringing eggs actually for people for free down into the city. So I'm assuming that they have poultry and eggs and so forth. So they might be interested in doing some type of CSA work. So that is the name of the farm and their website in the chat.
I see one other question. Naomi, you said that you wanted to learn more about recruitment. Do you want to expand on that and tell us what you mean?
No, I'm good right now. Thank you.
Hi, this is Mo Nicholson. I joined late, and I'm curious as to whether the recording of the meeting will be distributed because I'd like to listen to it from the beginning.
Yes, it will. We will
Okay.
share the recording and then some of the notes and links that were in the chat. Bear with me on timing. I will do it as soon as I can, but I'm also going away this weekend. So I will send it out as soon as I can, but we'll share all of that.
Oh, thanks so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I actually have a question for all of you, and that is, are you seeing different patterns of sign up or waitlist sign up that are different this year? We're seeing gangbusters sign up. I've never seen anything like it. And I think it's because people are really, really concerned about prices going up. And I'm curious what the rest of you are seeing.
I have seen an increase.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's not only pricing, but also I think people just like going back to farm food. Like that seems to be like more secure now. And then there's a mix of like, we want to support farmers. So there's been like this up because of the USDA funding freeze and a lot of farmers kind of pretty much will be struggling. If they were requiring USDA funding or USDA reimbursement funds, those are not coming in anytime soon. So that is just other ways to support farmers. And then just the climate that it is, that people are just like, the supermarkets are like not the thing anymore. So people are trying to like find alternatives. And yeah, I think it's just political in a sense.
Keep us posted if you're on the network organizers list. We'd love to know what patterns you're seeing during sign-up season or later, or if your farmers are struggling as with eggs or something, that would be good to know. And maybe we can, I think this year is going to be a little bit different the way it was during the COVID year. So it would be good if we post and support each other with what we're finding in the world.
Great. Thank you. I see Alicia has a question as well. Alicia.
Yes, hi. Our sign up is kind of typical. It drips and drips. Our farm will offer discounts for people who sign up right after the season, and they kind of go dark for a month. And they just offered a discount for the past week, and they take care of sending things out to members, etc. But so ours kind of dribbles in, and everyone signs up at the last minute, which is horrifying. Hate it, and going to try to work on getting more people signed up preseason. That said, what was my? Oh, damn it! I wrote down that question. Oh, season length. That's it.
Season length, yeah.
So our season length has gotten shaved down, we'll say, over the past couple of years, and the prices have gone up. Used to be we would start before Labor I always mix up Labor Day and Memorial Day. Labor Day, we would start before Labor Day and we would end right the week before Thanksgiving. Now we're June 3rd to the 28th of October. It's people notice it. The farm says, oh, it's not shorter. We have a shorter growing season because of global warming. But people who are long-term, CSA members do notice that we have a shorter season, and people are not buying from us the farm's global warming claim. So has anybody else heard this? And have they had their seasons shortened by their farmers?
We haven't had the season shortened by the farmers, but it's absolutely true that he's moved it back exactly because of global warming. So things are simply coming riper earlier, so that where previously we started the first or second week in June, now we're starting the end of May, and we're also ending a week earlier. And, you can't argue with him. He knows what's coming ripe. As far as pricing, there's no reason you can't ask how he's setting his prices and whether he's indexing against inflation. And there's no reason you can't say to him that, we have had some pushback on pricing from our members. And we've noticed that, and mentioned the shorter growing season and the higher prices. So, but the climate change thing is real. I think they are struggling to find a balance and find out, just figure out when things are coming right, basically. I think even the very experienced farmers are finding themselves in a bit of a new world. And here's an answer in the chat that says, Joanne says her farmer lengthened the season by 3 weeks and pricing's in line with last year. So that's another
interesting answer. Yeah, that's very interesting. I mean, that assumes that basically it's staying warmer longer, perhaps.
I'm also curious with this very cold winter, how it's going to affect this season.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very happy about the cold winter because I can grow spinach, which I haven't been able to grow in 3 years because it's been so warm. It bolts. So it's I'm curious as to what this season will look like. You know.
I mean, I know some of this is the nature of, hey, we, I don't know, I'm going to make it up. Our zucchini, we just couldn't get 6 weeks out of our zucchini. We couldn't, all those variables are things that our members accept. But having our season cut down and the prices go up over the last couple of years is probably where that's a pain point with some of our members.
Yeah.
I would just add to that, Alicia, when that has happened a couple times over us. It wasn't so much that we like lost weeks, but whenever there's pretty large increases in the price, we ask, because we do all of our own promotion for our sign up, and the sign-ups run through us, not the farmer. We just ask them for an explanation that we can put right at the very beginning of our email out to folks to let them know, yes, it increased from last year, and this is why. Folks on Long Island lost farmland. They had to pay more for people because this, or this, for staffing. So it just helps to frame it a little bit. And, still no doubt we lost folks, but it does help to have a little bit of that transparency if it's possible. I wanted to just ask a question for Joanne also. If you're able to share, do you know, because this is interesting to me with the price of everything, they're able to extend their season pricing essentially seems like it stays the same. Do you know is the amounts per week changing at all? We also had that one year, which was fine. People were okay with it, but we had the farmer like reduce the number of items per week from 10 to 12 down to 8 to 10. So just a curiosity.
They have two different, am I talking?
Yep, you are.
I have two different share sizes, and one is and has been I have the smaller one, so it's 6 to 8, and I think the larger one is 10 to 12. I haven't noticed a huge difference in quantity. We had a quantity difference. We used to have a farmer who she grew what she grew and she split it up. And now we have a farmer who manages both our farm, the CSA farm, and the market farm. And so we get more of a dollar amount equivalent. So it's a little less generous than it was under the other farmer, but it's still more or less the same year over year. And the price has gone up a little, but not a lot. They control their costs pretty well, so.
Okay, that's good to know. Good to know. Well, I see we are at 8:29. So with that, I want to, be respectful of everyone's time. I know we could keep chatting, I am sure. But again, I put up the screen with our email. You guys all know, and I think we've been on emails. It's advisory@justfood.org if you have follow-up questions. I would love to share my gratitude and our gratitude for all of you for showing up and staying on tonight, and sharing your questions and your experiences and your wishes. We have some follow-up things that we're going to be looking into. And I want to thank Ruth and John and Cheryl for presenting and kicking us off, and also Bruce for designing.
Sia, because she just stepped in and we weren't expecting
yes.
this. A nice surprise.
we lost. Oh, Sia's here as well from Just Food. So, yes. So I just want to thank everyone. We will share resources, and with that, I will wish everyone a good night.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you so much.
Good night. Great job.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. And good luck.